same things attract
Mm-hmm.
more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm saying.
But the other thing too that he says, like, basically you can't make a mistake with a partner. It's not that everything's necessarily a lesson. Well, because that too means, like, that's something to get, you know?
Which is dangerous for some people.
Like, something more to understand, something more to chew on, as opposed to just, like, something to go through.
Yeah, I think that distinction is important, that it's a multi-level process and you can't get that through chewing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, one of the ways I'm sure you will do this raising your vibration is by building a relationship of trust with yourself.
Yeah.
That is not an intellectual.
Right, because, like, it's just an illusion that you're actually reacting to other people.
Let
me say that again. So, I think he said that in the email, that, like, we've all been, oh my god, this is really going there, isn't it? I think he said that, like, we've all been conditioned to, like, believe it's external circumstances that are causing us to feel these specific ways.
No,
he didn't say that. What did he say exactly about that?
He was saying that part of it is learning to give yourself the things that you have been conditioned to believe you're supposed to get from outside.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds like
working on your relationship with yourself.
You mend your relationship with yourself. It's like that cliche thing of, like, the second you don't need the partner, that's when the partner shows up.
I don't get that from this at all.
No?
No, because I think, like, I could meet a partner in 2 minutes.
But I more mean, like, that's how you, like, raise your vibration around relationships.
But on some level, of course it is. Because, like, getting better at something means getting better at something.
Getting better at something? What?
Like, growing is directional.
Mm-hmm.
So, otherwise, why do the work? I might be being very incoherent right now.
I feel really incoherent.
Really? This is going to be a shit show.
Oh my god, it really is. No, because I was thinking about this, like, all day. I was like, maybe we just busy ourselves with, like, work.
Okay.
And then something changes and we think it's because of the work. And it has nothing to do with it. It would have happened anyway. It's just we're just doing what we're doing. We're just, like, going through what we're going through. But
I'm really sorry. Can you repeat that?
No, I know. Okay.
Sorry.
So, like, we busy ourselves with work.
Mm-hmm.
In whatever it is. Like, whether we're working on ourselves or we're working on our businesses or, like, whatever it is. And then something happens. Something changes. And we go, oh, see, it's because of all this work. And one has nothing to do with the other.
Maybe. But you're in, like, willpower territory.
Yeah.
Which he does not believe.
Yeah, he believes that we have willpower. Yeah.
Like, what you're saying hinges on the belief that the occurrence or appearance of something that is changing, that changes you or what's going on with you, is disconnected from all of your efforts.
Yeah. Wait, I'm just trying to get there. I'm trying to get there. Because it's not that it's disconnected. It's just like, sure, if that's the thing you want to do between now and then, go for it. If that's the way you want to cross the river, okay. But you're crossing the river anyway.
Yeah, but some people don't.
No one drowns.
I don't know if that's true. Mhm. First of all, because obviously people don't.
Yeah, okay. This is a non-drowning river.
You're sold on the inevitability of occurrences. Then,
Mhm.
like things have to happen for no reason.
Maybe.
That's like the underlying belief of
It's not like there's no reason. I see it as something different than that. It's not like there's no reason. It's just it's not reliant on a reason.
maybe.
On one reason.
Well, nothing's wrong. Nothing.
So it's kind of like it's kind of like yeah, your guides don't care what you do because you're going there anyway.
No, they do care what I do,
Oh,
but they don't care on a certain level.
yeah.
The egoic level. And whatever I was saying when we were talking about that was something that was very like personal. Personal meaning like specific to this version of me.
Yeah.
Is it? I don't know if it's a good idea to sound like a crazy person on the internet forever.
I don't know either. This is getting weird. Yeah, this is getting weird. But I did want to talk about this.
I don't think it's any
specifically.
weirder than anything else we talk about.
This feels like we're like suddenly like this jaw's getting pretty far open.
Okay.
I don't know.
I might try.
No. I don't know. What do you think?
About?
Is this an okay conversation to be having on the internet?
I mean, we've had almost every other conversation.
Okay.
Not in the world, but like.
I was also thinking it specifically related to War and Peace, and I actually did want to talk about this.
Okay.
Because I was thinking about Kutuzov with all of this.
Okay.
And him like just saying whatever he wants to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't really believe in causality.
He does, just not causality between his orders or his comments and the outcome. Something is causing the outcome, but it's not him,
The spirit of the army.
for example.
So okay. I guess what I was thinking about, why am I talking about this? I was basically thinking like Kutuzov is a man of God.
You mean because of his like implicit trust in the everything?
Kind of. He's like, it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just here in service of, and I'll go where I'm like, I'll say whatever like I say, and it doesn't matter in the long run because whatever's meant to happen is going to happen. And like the spirit of the army in so many ways like is God, is like this mysterious thing that you can't control. And it's either there or it isn't.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a fine line between that and nihilism though, and feeling like there's no purpose or no, like all of your efforts are meaningless. there's a fine line between
Yeah,
one
that's
and
what
the
I mean. Like, it's not that, well, then you shouldn't do anything. It's like, no, do whatever, do anything, do whatever.
And that's always true. Do anything, do whatever.
It's like you can't make a wrong decision, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of actually think that.
Yeah.
How do you think people end up with no regrets?
Right.
Because every decision was right. For whatever different varied reasons.
But there's also something to, like, every decision is right, and no, and has nothing to do with what happens at the end.
Depends on what you see the end as being.
Yeah.
Depends on what you think of as being the point. You know? Because if outcome is your currency of value, if you're like, outcome is the thing, that's when you open the present, that is what's inside. Then, yes. But personally, at least, I have never derived satisfaction from outcome in terms of this wrong choices, right choices thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's never come from occurrences
Mm-hmm.
or outcomes. Because the outcome's fugly a lot of times.
Okay.
So it depends on what you're looking at and looking for.
So what do you look for when you say, like,
Learning.
learning?
Yeah,
That's not an outcome.
I don't think.
Not for you.
No. Because, for example, I don't know that as an outcome, I am no more than I did. Yeah, there's no product. In learning, there's no like product. An outcome feels like,
How do you know you've learned it then?
I don't know. I don't know how. It's a chicken and egg thing with me, the learning thing, because as you know, we've talked about this things happening for a reason thing.
Yeah.
Concept. And I think I just like assume, kind of like how I take every opportunity to feel guilty and then figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I figure out every opportunity to learn and then later figure out what it is. Like I assume everything is there for learning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never a negative outcome, really. Or like it doesn't matter if it's a negative outcome because I'll get something from it. I'll still be able to get learning and growth from it. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, how are you defining the value of the outcome? Which is easier in a war where there are two sides and the French run away. You know, that's a clear outcome, but
My mom has that philosophy of life too. She's like, life is a school, and she also believes in past lives.
I don't know if I do. I just feel like I do.
But she loves learning too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not convinced. And I know it's
What
like,
made you to be convinced?
right, like that's like how you frame things, and that's like what's helpful for you.
Also, like then to you, convincing is like convinced is the outcome is the outcome there. Like, why do you have to be convinced
Oh,
of it or anything else?
no, I don't have to be convinced.
Like, not convinced is not a problematic relationship.
Yeah, I just find this whole like not knowing thing very interesting.
Not
Very,
knowing,
like-
which not knowing thing?
Like letting go of understanding things.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I don't know that us learning things and understanding things is like what leads to the next thing.
Learning things and understanding things to me are wildly different. So which one do you mean? Because understanding is a very site-specific occurrence.
Okay.
Learning is not. Learning is a full body experience. So, if you're talking about understanding, I would agree. If you're talking about learning, I don't agree. Which way?
Seems to me like once you learn something, like you know you've learned it because it's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's the strangest thing ever.
Because it's integrated.
Maybe.
Well, obviously, maybe. Maybe everything.
Right. It's like once you've learned something, you don't actually have it. Like it's invisible.
And if you attach value to visibility, then you will feel that as a deprivation.
So
but
it
if
makes
it's
sense
not,
to me that you're like, oh, it's not a product.
Yeah.
It's almost like you finally like stop putting yourself outside of the thing.
Didn't follow.
Like I just think it's infinitely so it's outside of you if you're like, I don't understand, I don't get it, it's outside of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like over there. And you can look at it and you can watch other people do it and you're like, how are they doing that? Da-da-da. And that's what I mean by like once you learn it, it's no longer outside of you.
Correct.
Like suddenly it's I don't know, it's just simple. It just makes sense. And if you think about it, if you like try to get it, then you take yourself back to the like not getting it place. You know, it's like trying to think about how you walk.
Do you take yourself back? If you, thinking about not getting it, I'm going to need an analogy. So we walk. We are
Right.
quite experienced in
It's just
walking.
the very simple thing of like, you know how to walk. You don't have to think about it. But if
Yeah.
you were to start thinking about it,
Yeah.
you would suddenly be like, wait, how do I do it?
Would you?
Maybe you wouldn't.
Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. But I can see how you would.
Yeah. So like from that place, it's kind of like we're not walking.
Why is it like that?
Because like what's the I that's walking?
Why does walking have to be a separate I then? Why does it have to be a separate?
It doesn't. It's just like most people think that like they're in control of the walking, but actually like the fact that you can walk means that you don't think about it.
I don't get the significance of that.
It kind of seems to me today like learning is doing away with yourself and the thing. Is like
Doing away with yourself.
yeah.
You are in a way doing away with the thing. That makes sense to me.
You're doing away with the thing and like you interacting with it.
Yeah.
Like it's not egoic. You like transcended your ego around that thing to a certain extent.
Maybe, but I follow. Yeah, I follow. Do you have feelings about that? Because that to me doesn't sound like a good, bad. Like it sounds. I don't know what it sounds like. So, do you have
Okay.
feelings about it?
It's just like I'm kind of like, what the hell is learning? That's where I'm at. And
Okay. Yeah, I think the way you just described it is very much how it is. And I know that from from a concept of karmic learning, for example,
yeah.
the way that he remember I gave you the
I didn't
definition
read
of
it. I didn't read it. Yeah.
basically it's
I know it's not punishment.
no,
Yeah.
it's unintegrated stuff that will keep like coming up or like appearing or becoming problematic or something, and you have to like absorb it in some way.
Yeah.
So I guess that is what learning
It
is.
is. Okay.
And once you absorb it, like this is making it sound like very pat and facile, but you're not. It's not here anymore.
Right. You can't look at it anymore.
You can look at it.
You can?
Yeah. I don't know why you would want to recreate your previous relationship with it, but
Well, oh my god, okay. So this totally is the thing to me where it's like
the shoebox.
shoot,
Go ahead, sir.
oh like where I was like, oh, when I realized the secret of life, you know?
I can't remember which time.
I was like, oh, we are all one, and the only reason that you're over there
Yeah.
is because if you weren't over there, I couldn't have you.
Yeah.
But it's so lonely over here, you not being part of me.
Yeah. Well, actually, not on drugs. I can't speak for her, but
So like anything in the universe is like that. Any learning to be had. And if
Yes.
if I were to take a step back, which I guess I do, and you're like, why would you do that? But I guess I do, and maybe that's where doubt comes
well, then
in.
you're not done with it. If you step
Right.
back, you're not done.
Yeah. Maybe that's where doubt comes in. To me, seems like a wanting to still have it in front of you, like to still have it.
Yeah, this is a lot like the shoe boxes and the packages and
Yeah.
a lot of other
Yes.
things.
Yes, it is.
Because on the other side of opening the package, you've got the shoes.
Yeah. And then once they're mine, because right now they're not really mine.
Right.
I've never worn them.
So you seem to have something with like wanting things to be outside of you.
Yeah.
Or something.
And I know it's like wrapped up with a belief that like I ruin things. So there's something about like this is probably just self-hate 101. But
Welcome
it's
to
like
self-loathing.
like
101.
me interacting with the thing. So now I don't like it anymore.
Who cares if you like it? Why do you need to like it? Like, why do I need to have liked what I ate, the black bean pasta? Why do I now need to have liked the black bean dinner pasta that I had yesterday?
Very good question. I don't know.
I don't know if that's analogous, but it feels like it.
It is, yeah. No, you don't. Like, and I know it's a total.
Well, definitely not now.
That's
You know, this actually
right.
connects with something that I've been wanting to ask and I keep forgetting to, which is that I've actually, you know how people don't think about fame until it's too late? In the same way, I was wondering, like, if I did something dreamless and like, would you be okay with being like Mozart? Is it Mozart? No. Who like people who are completely unappreciated? Van Gogh.
Oh, Van Gogh. Very different.
Yeah.
You mean Salieri? No.
No, one of the
Okay.
Beethoven? I think it was Beethoven.
Beethoven?
Wasn't he? Someone was
It was a big deal.
some major classical, one of the like,
Handel?
I don't know that much about classical music, so it's probably like, it's probably someone general.
Yeah.
Obvious.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's not the point. The
But
point
like
is,
a genius who wasn't appreciated in his time.
yeah. So how do you feel about the idea, like if somebody gave you a choose your own adventure and they were like, you can do cool things and somehow like remove that it has a good, like if just for you. Like obviously if you cured cancer, then it would benefit a bunch of people and like, but taking that potential altruism out of it.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel about doing something brilliant but then never getting acknowledged in your lifetime versus doing something and getting acknowledgement for it?
So doing something mediocre and getting acknowledgement for it versus doing something brilliant. How do I know it's brilliant?
Because I just said so. Like that's the example.
I mean, I would probably go with doing something brilliant
because
and not being appreciated. Better option.
because
Because the first is experiential. Like you get a cozy life.
yeah.
You get a cozy life. But in the end, you don't matter.
But in the end, so you think you matter if you leave something behind? That
I think you
people
matter
continue
if
to
you're a
talk about.
genius.
What about a genius that never gets recognized? Even posthumously.
Mm-hmm. I think you matter.
I don't know why this feels connected to me, but it does.
Yeah.
It's like this because one of them is like a thing that it's unhavable. The genius thing is like unhavable because by the time anyone fucking gives a shit, you're not gonna be there.
Yeah.
So like, who cares?
It's like
on the one
it never happens because
it's like it never happens. But it's so interesting
Yeah.
that we fully like think that that's a better choice.
Right.
At some point, like a few days ago, I was like, why do I care what happens after I'm dead?
Yeah.
Why would you care? Unless, again, like I said, you're curing cancer and you know that, like, oh, a bunch of people will be saved. But, like, assuming it's something less.
I think about this all the time in terms of just me enjoying my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I care a lot about how I come across to people.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just let myself be like the dumbass in the room who's having a good time, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just having a great time. Like, if I stopped pretending to know what other people think about me.
Assuming you're pretending to know? Yes.
I am
Agreed.
like I am because I can't know.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't prevent me from being a dumbass. like it's also not preventing me from having bad experiences.
Correct.
Or looking foolish. It's just I'm looking foolish in a different way than maybe I would be if I wasn't trying to avoid it. I think I'm like trying to avoid the cow dung and stepping in some horse shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I were to just be like, whatever, I'm just gonna do what I want, and I'm just gonna like believe that I'm great,
Mm-hmm.
and I could be totally wrong, but who cares? I'm just gonna like believe that I'm great. Then all I actually have is like just me having a great time and
Yeah.
believing that I'm great.
Yeah.
That's all that actually exists.
Yeah.
For as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. I was thinking about this when it comes to doubt, to self-doubt, and the kind of insecurity that comes from self-doubt, like a large way. Kind of like what we were talking about last night.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I like had a conception of myself that didn't have that self-doubt. And I was like, oh, that's a possible person. This is sounding pretty meaningless.
No, you actually like were able to see another version of yourself without it.
Yeah. And so like my sister is one of the people who, multiple people in my family have done this, but who are like, just stop already. Like, meaning just start already. What are you doing?
Yeah.
She must be more articulate than I am, because I like she says,
just
stop. Like, what are you even doing?
Yeah.
And I like somehow make up what she's talking about. No, but she's always or for a long time she's been encouraging a kind of like, it seemed to me, bravery and like a throwing caution to the wind and not worrying and instead just focusing on whatever it is and not getting like waylaid consistently by like, oh, I got attention to my self-doubt, or excuse me 1 second, and like I realized like I'd then just be there the whole time.
Right.
I wouldn't be like, dance break, where I now like those might just be removed. It's not like I'd be a whole different person. I'd just be sort of this version continuing without these little like smoke breaks that are like little self-doubt visits.
Yeah.
That I feel compelled to make. And I could see from the outside, and I could see why somebody would observe that and be like, just stop. I could see what she sees.
This is not actually doing anything.
Yeah, it's completely an unnecessary thing, because it's not like it's coloring all the other moments. Because I'm like, if I'm engaged in a conversation or something, like there is no doubt.
Yeah.
I'm not like, what did I just say?
Right.
There's nothing like crippling happening. It's just that like then I break things up to do this other thing that is not consistent with the things that are in between it. So just like stop doing those ones. I don't have to be a whole different person.
Yeah. Okay. There's just just stop taking smoke breaks.
Yeah. But I've never thought of self-doubt as being like a smoke break.
Mm.
or a thing that I have to like attend to that interrupts everything.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is,
It's
an
very real.
interruption.
But it feels very real.
Yes.
Especially if you're like, I mean, depending on where you are with it,
Yes, it certainly feels real.
it can be like, no, I'm not taking a smoke break. Like, I literally cannot do the thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It appears like that, for sure. It dresses up like that.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to say that, but that's kind of what the realization was, is that it's just like this unnecessary behavior of like excusing yourself from something that's like interesting and important or whatever,
Mhm.
and just going and doing like 70 jumping jacks over there and being like, right, where were we?
Yeah.
But I thought self-doubt was like a much more pervasive feature of me.
Mm. I don't actually think it's a part of you.
I guess not. I'm guessing not.
Like, I think it's something that catches.
Yeah.
It's like a cold.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's a self-doubt thing. Cool. I love the smoking analogy. You're like, cool. All right, give me some of that.
Yeah. And it gives you a sense of belonging. Because you're like, I have my insecurities,
Oh yeah.
everybody, so
So I'm human.
I need to take, yeah.
I'm safe. I'm not threatening because look how much I.
Yeah.
Oh, not me.
Yeah. So it allows you to like, and it's giving other people breaks too,
Mm.
which I think there's something like very visible and like deal with me about just remaining present.
Yeah.
Without going into like an abstraction from your past. You know? Because that's what that shit is. You just get distracted by fucking something.
Yeah.
Because there are all these moments that you're perfectly fine, having a perfectly fine conversation, and then suddenly something happens and you're elsewhere. So weirdly, it's seeming to me like the opposite of self-doubt is consistently present.
Hmm.
Which I would never think is the opposite. Like, that doesn't seem...
Hmm. That's very good. I've never thought of it like that. I've thought of like the opposite of self-doubt is just like, but I guess it's basically that. It's like being with someone or being with the activity. It's like stop thinking about yourself, basically. But present is another way to say that, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just means you don't quit on the thing.
Well, yeah, and there's also something. So self-doubt is just like entirely self-focused.
Mm-hmm.
There's like something you're telling yourself that like you need to be that you can't be.
Mm-hmm.
You can't measure up to. Blah blah blah. And like that's not what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an accident that people talk about like being in the zone or being in flow, and they lose themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe instead of it being like, maybe them losing themselves is the thing that enables the other thing.
That's consistent with all Eastern philosophy.
Right.
That's like that's the goal.
Yeah.
Is to like sort of disregard or like be able to like step out of the egoic construction to just be one with everybody.
Yeah. So instead of like needing, a métier, like some skill, whatever. Oh yeah, when I'm in my workshop, that's when I lose myself. Like, what if you were able to lose yourself in whatever it is you do?
Mhm.
Because you just don't think that you're that interesting.
I mean, I think I'm definitely less interesting than life.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've talked about this when it comes to acting, that like it's important to make the thing, whatever it is, more important than you.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
In this conversation. And that's something that I often do with acting, or like it's one of the metrics with it is like if I'm paying too much attention to what's going on with me, that's a sign that I haven't made this important enough. So that's the work. Like that's the little piece of work that's missing. And I like that. I like it because it's fixable. It's not like, oh, I got distracted with myself again. You know what I mean? Like there's no like no
So,
moral.
Yeah, because that would be more just thinking about yourself.
Yes.
Judging yourself is just, you can't you can't maneuver around it.
So you just have to make this thing more important somehow. With stakes or with like investment or with whatever it is.
Yeah. I think presence is such a good way to sum that up, actually. Because if you really get present with just about anything, it's really curious and fascinating and difficult. Like, maybe difficult's the wrong word, but
To me, it feels like the moments where, and I have this recurring, I have had this recurring imagery theme thing happen in my life. Do you ever see Warner Brothers stuff? Cartoons?
Oh, yes.
Not like anything that's produced by Warner.
I was like,
Probably.
yeah. Like Bugs Bunny?
Yes.
Yeah.
In that like era, that thing, there is someone's like biking and they're like over here or over there, and they go biking off a cliff and they continue to pedal and they're going like this still and until they look down, and that's when they fall. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It feels like that moment where you're like, oh shit, there's nothing under me, is there? But you can't look down. It's a precarious.
Yeah, like you can't watch yourself doing it.
It's very precarious.
Adam Driver. No, you can't watch yourself.
No, it reminds me of the Man on Wire guy.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing else. There can't be anything else. That's he's definitely gonna die. If there is.
Yeah.
And that thing about looking down also. Can you imagine how terrifying it is to have walked from one of the World Trade Center towers to the other on a wire? It makes me want to I think that might be the scariest thing I can possibly think of. Like, I'd rather come up against Hungry Tiger.
Yeah, there's something so perfect You make a mistake. And it's done.
You can't you can't not pay attention for 1 second. Or
But at the same time, like, you can't be tense about it.
yeah, I know.
It's genius. Like, the whole idea is genius.
That movie has stuck with me in a way that I cannot explain. I mean, I probably could explain it. But like, that's crazier to me than Whim.
Yeah? Yeah.
Which, like, it's so precarious. If you're in a tub of ice, in an ice bath forever, or like, you can be like, I can't do this. You can do that for a second, and then be like, okay, I can. Or like, I don't know. There's just so much more room to maneuver.
Yeah, you can't have any.
You have to like not exist.
Basically.
It is stupefying.
It also makes me think of free climbing.
I haven't seen that, and honestly, I don't know if I could take it.
Oh my god, it's so like, I feel sweaty. I actually
My
feel
hands are sweating.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, oh my god. I think it's the same thing.
At least it's behind you. You know, at least what you're looking at least there's solidity here.
Mm.
Somehow that makes me feel better. With the wire, there's nothing anywhere. There's nothing nowhere. Fuck me.
But okay. So it's all of those considerations. But if you think about like that kind of state, like it's no different than a tennis player.
Yeah, I know it. I know it in theory, but I have like so much envy around that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that it's the creative flow thing.
Mm.
It's the like just like allowing.
Right.
That's like one of the most intimidating life experiences that I have. Is spaces that call for, require, need that.
Mm. Mm.
Like that's definitely one of my like nemesis.
You have like a double thing there.
Really?
At least that's how I see it. Like, because that to me is self-doubt. Like,
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, you already have it. Like, you have it. You just have to go.
Yeah, but
Just be like this, and then you create that. Like,
I know that's what he's doing.
Anyone who makes a company, I'm like, what? You just were like, yeah, let's make this company.
Yeah.
And then you call up people and you chase. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what people are doing creatively.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, that idea. When they don't take smoke breaks.
Yeah.
But you like also have self-doubt around the fact that you don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not just like, oh, I can't. It's also like, I can't.
And I can't because I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're the same thing.
Are they?
Like, just don't I'll do either of them. Or
Just stop.
it's a little sandwich. Just go.
But then what? After that, go. And then after that, go.
You can take breaks. Like, you can still take a break.
Yeah, I'm not talking about breaks. I'm talking about breaks from doubtlessness. I'm talking about the kind of breaks I was talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
The smoke breaks.
You want them?
I have brainwashed myself into believing I need them.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that like discomfort in the conversation yesterday was sticking to what I was saying without then immediately doubling or like jumping off or doubling back
Yeah.
or going.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm going to stay with what I just
Oh
said.
my God. Yeah.
I can't breathe.
That's what it, at least that's what I've experienced. It's just like stay. Like
Yeah.
you're a dog and you're like, stay, stay, stay.
Yeah.
Stay.
Yep. I think walking on wires is a sharp way to fucking outsmart that thing.
Yeah, that's why I was like,
Because it's like you can't think of anything else.
yeah, like just to come up with that idea. Of course.
Part of me thinks it's cheating. Like,
Yeah.
yes, like, you know, the part, I've never seen The Revenant, but I have like a little bit of a thing around a couple of issues that I imagine
Mhm.
I have with the movie.
Okay. Yes, yes.
So every part of this is imaginary, is the point.
But probably you have these issues with it.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm glad I was clear about that.
And what are these issues?
That is it acting if he's actually cold? Is it acting if he's actually eating the? I hear he eats a dead. Apparently he eats a dead thing.
Mm.
And apparently it was real.
Mm.
Is that acting?
Was it a moose? What was it?
I don't know.
Is that acting? I mean, if you're acting, you're not acting. You know.
You know what I mean?
No, I know, but like.
Yeah, I get it, but. So I feel like that. I'm like, but your life actually does depend on it. So you're not using you are using discipline. But
you're not actually doing anything.
Yeah, because you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because you will die.
It doesn't matter that it's Leo DiCaprio. Put anyone in that position, it's a good performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like his life, if his life depends on it, then yeah, that's what he's going to be doing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, part of me thinks that that's like you're getting the world to enforce your boundary, as opposed to enforcing it yourself.
Yeah.
I'm such a smarty pants about boundaries when it comes to theoretical ones. If only all boundaries were theoretical.
That's an interesting argument.
What
against method acting.
But again, it's kind of assuming that what you're doing is placing like that's based on where I'm placing value, which is
on like the skill of the person.
On yeah, so it's not at all, which is why I kind of go in and out with this sort of thing. Because I'm like, does it matter? Doesn't it? I don't know. Because what do I care how he did it? Like, why is that important to me? Because I'm like, no, you have to do it with nothing. You have to do it with no snow. That's the only kind of person I respect.
Yeah.
And what's my problem?
It's very like theater minded. fear,
Well, yes, obviously.
like that acting is imagination.
Yes, because otherwise it's reality TV. And if you place value on that, somebody being able to make a world out of nothing, then you're going to be like, but he's actually in the snow, actually eating, retching from fucking raw meat. So, like, I'm sure I'd nail this scene too. Who can not nail this
Who
scene?
can not do it? I mean, someone who would just like wouldn't do it.
I have so many things that I wouldn't do. This guy, this TV show I was watching was like talking about plant poisons or whatever. It was like, pulled this toad out, and I was like, no,
No, you wouldn't.
no. There's a long list of things that I would not do.
Actually, I might not do that. You could die. How do you know that's the right toad?
I
Could
don't
be a
know, but
completely
even if it was a
different toad.
benign toad,
Just the idea of licking a toad, you're not doing
I'm
that.
not handling it.
Oh, handling.
I'm not handling it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was just like this, and I was like,
I would handle a toad.
Yeah,
What
but
about
I make a career out of thinking of things that I wouldn't do.
Of course you do.
Why? Why? Of course.
So you're like, I can't.
Oh yeah.
You're like, what are the situations in which I would be taken out?
It used to be, yeah. It used to be the Revenant used to take that place in my head. I used to be like, I wouldn't do the Revenant. It's too cold.
Oh yeah.
Because it's too cold.
Yeah, the cold.
Like I genuinely don't know how you did any of the stuff that you have done.
Yeah, it's all the cold.
I don't get it. I remember you saying to me once, you know, like how when your mouth is so numb that you can't say your lines? And I was like, what?
There's so many things I've worked in. Yeah, you're so cold. You're like,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, we're gonna need a clean take of that.
You're like, what? Why?
But you just don't have another choice. And like, I know you would. Because if we're there, you just would. Because you're not going to
Yeah, but I
stop
don't know if I would
production
be
on a
there.
thing just because you're cold. I mean, you try, but they don't let you either.
What I'm saying is that I think I would not take the job if I knew.
Oh, okay.
So if someone was like, Leonardo DiCaprio is doing this cold movie called The Revenant.
You
wanna
would do it.
I honestly don't know if I would.
Really?
Well, now I would because of Wim Hof, but
Right.
because I feel like slightly differently about it. But before, I was like, I honestly might not do that movie.
Mm.
Handling a toad, I don't think I would do that. I actually see a lot of things.
I do too. Usually they're more contextual though.
Like,
It's not like things that I don't want to experience. Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't about like the experience. I'm like, no, give me plenty of suffering.
Yeah.
But in the moment, but like, oh, it's just the things of like, girl locked in a box, girl down a well. You remember?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. And when I see like characters that are, I'm like, fuck that girl. I feel so bad for that girl.
Why don't you want to do it? Because you don't want to live there?
No, it has nothing to do with it. I don't want.
I've never confronted this.
I don't
because
want to
that's never-
perpetuate that image in any direction. I don't want me to be the girl down the well. I don't want that I don't want that association for myself. And I feel deeply uncomfortable about those characters and
Can you
their
say more about
continued
them?
existence. I don't think we should be showing so many images of like women being brutally tortured like that. I don't care if they get rescued in the end.
How do you think? Do you think it perpetuates stuff like that in the real world, or do you think because stuff like that does happen?
It normalizes it in a weird way. Suddenly, like the unimaginable becomes imaginable.
Mm-hmm. So it's more the way people interface with it in the real world that you have worries or misgivings about, rather than believing that it has an impact on people's actions in the world. I mean, obviously, your attitude towards something is going to.
I don't know if it impacts people's actions. I don't know how you would know that. Like it's also an interesting question of like what comes first.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, or like we responding to the media or is the media responding to us.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something perpetuating about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're keeping up the conversation.
Would it make a difference to you if it was continuing to happen in the world, and therefore it's like an attempt at, I know this is not.
Yeah. I know it's prophesied, so if it's happening in the world and then like we never talk about it, that's not a better situation.
I mean, I don't know. It's a question. Because the place that my mind immediately goes is like the horrendous real life shit that I have heard about. For some reason, a lot of it happens in India. But it's a pervasive reality. So, like, what should we do? I don't know the answer, and I'm not suggesting that you have one or get one, but it does bring up, like, what kind of different models would there be to try and deal with something in an honest way while not leading into the perpetuating, which I think we clearly do. It's so funny. It's like you never come on for me. I'm never in the road. Although I do have feelings like that about things that have to do with terrorism and shit.
Right.
Like I won't not play someone who has extremist beliefs, but I'm probably not going to do it twice. So, but I'm not adding to this heap.
Yeah.
I a little bit feel if you pull that thread, though, that the whole thing comes apart.
I think I know what you mean because I think I was thinking of it too. Can you?
I mean that there's this
Further?
like thread that you are particularly aware of how you feel about it, and you're like, I don't want to do that. But I don't know that the film and TV industry exists without that going on in it.
Do you mean like just victims without bad things happening to people? Like what do you mean?
Without it being, without it normalizing horrific shit, without it Like if you think it's happening with that, then it's probably happening
Yeah.
with other stuff too.
Yeah.
So how do you then reconcile that? Because I feel like if you do continue to pull that, then literally the whole thing falls apart. Because it's all made with the same thread.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the project really matters. Like, what does this mean that Room should never have been made? Which I haven't seen actually.
I'm not trying to see that.
I'm not trying to see that either.
Because I guess the same argument can be made of like almost everything.
Yeah, like for some reason my mind went to Moonlight.
Hmm.
And I was like, terrible things happened to that kid.
Yeah, like what? Where do you decide your lines are with stuff like that, I guess?
For some reason, sometimes, and I think this goes with the terrorism, some of it feels gratuitous,
Mhm.
flashy.
Mhm.
Like, how bad can we make this situation?
Mhm.
And that's I think the difference. When it's just like meant to like shock you in some kind
Yeah,
of
but
way.
is that really that clear of a line? Because to me, it's like that
No,
is
it's pretty fuzzy.
very hazy. Like,
Yeah.
I would not know which belongs on this side and which belongs on that side a lot of times.
Yeah.
Unless I personally know the people making it and personally know like where it's coming from and what's going into it.
Yeah, and I'm sure talking about this too, like I'm sure my own stuff goes into it of just like never wanting to be that vulnerable. Like never wanting to be that out of control. And that vulnerable. And yeah, there's something intermingled for that for work. You know, like if that's your job to be that, that's a hard job. And it's not fair. Well, I don't know. Like,
I don't know what fair is.
yeah. It's like you're not the hero. You're the one the hero saves. And that's like how much tougher is your job?
I think this is the kind of stuff that that at least for me that he meant about there being a contradiction between the industry and like some basic stuff that feels basic to me.
Yeah. I think dignity is really important. Like allow people to have their dignity. Like for some reason,
I
also,
agree. I also just don't know what it is.
I don't know. You know who makes me feel a similar way though, and it is like the naked women on Game of Thrones. It feels the same way. Sometimes naked men. Damn it, I lost it.
Dignity. You know who makes me feel like that? And sometimes in Game of Thrones.
Okay. The Room. The actress in The Room.
Fully. It was
for
horrible.
all of that movie. All like not just the sex scenes, like all of it.
But yeah, horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there needs to be that like it's a person, and regardless of whatever situation they're in, they're still recognized as being like a person, not just an object of like victimization.
Yeah, but if that's the bar, who makes that like? What's the difference between like whether you see someone as an object? This reminds me of the first play that I ever did. I'm sure I've talked about this before because um, I played like it was a group of scientists with the monkey puppets,
Yeah.
and there was like a love triangle where there's this older, more experienced doctor who's having an affair with this like extremely sharp, younger female scientist, and then a new guy like comes into the tribe or whatever, and then she like has an affair with him, and then simultaneous to that, a similar dynamic is playing out in the monkey thing. Like one like young, aggressive thing is like trying to topple the alpha.
Yeah.
So it's all about status and power, and all of that stuff is very potentially debasing. And I had a tough time with it. It was a new play, so the playwright was in the room for a lot of it. And I did get into heated conversations with him. This was ages ago. But one of the things I remember is at the opening night party, my friend was like, "You have to come and meet my friend." I don't know if I should say his name. A playwright. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was. I knew him. If somebody said his name, I would have known immediately.
Okay. But it was just
it was just a guy.
Yeah, like come meet my friend.
Yes.
Okay.
It seemed a little loaded at the time, but I was like, whatever. And I go and I'm sat down at this table, and he says something like, basically called her a slut in the first sentence.
The character.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, excuse me? Basically like took offense. And I mean, the story goes on and gets weirder and weirder because I kind of felt like him antagonizing me was like when I was like, that's a really like when I got not defensive, but when I got into like a thing with him, and was like, that's bullshit, he like enjoyed it.
Right. As a game.
Yeah. So then I kind of was like, so I don't know. All of which to say, like, you can't account for how someone sees someone. So you see a portrayal of a scientist, and someone is going to walk out being like, that was a slut. That was like an item. Like sometimes it's clear, but a lot of times it's not. And how do you, whether or not someone's an object or being treated like an object or a person, that has so much to do with how they're viewed, which then becomes about the viewer as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And then how do you even...
It makes me think of pointillism. Like you put red and blue dots together because the human mind can create a shade of purple better than any painter could mix. So with good art, there's that too. Like you want to have the person's like filling in of the emotion and the depth of the story. It's going to be so much richer and so much more personal than anything a filmmaker can do. and it's on an individual basis. You know?
Yeah, because the beautiful thing is happening in between.
Yeah.
It's happening between the story or the character and the person experiencing it with them. So yeah, that's where the stuff is. Because otherwise, then it is just about the actor, which I don't think acting is about.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you.
I know. I'm not trying
But
to
I
put
think
you on the spot.
I think people are talking about this in their own way and attempting this in their own way. I don't think movies or TV shows need to be realism.
Mhm.
People can get really caught on that. However, I think you can go too far in the opposite direction, which is just like everything serves a story. I think that's like very true to a certain extent, but then characters and people, like representation of people, become just like machine parts. And I think there needs to be like what serves the story, and also like what serves. Like maybe this is really highfalutin, but it's like what serves the human race. Like how do we want to portray people?
Yeah, but how do we?
So I think that like every individual is like is perfect in a way.
I think they call that snowflake.
Yeah, he's a
Sure.
snowflake.
But obviously, the fact that they're not snowflakes is the only reason art works. Because we look at shit. Because of our shit. Because of recognition.
This is actually this might be a really good example
This is I thought about it as well.
because there's definitely a ton of characters you never meet. I'm just thinking of all the crowd scenes.
The feeling is not gone away from my body.
Anxiety.
Yeah, like I still feel like something bad. I don't know why. Not in my head, but from the way up here in my neck down. Not to change the topic, I just wanted to acknowledge it. Yes, this is a good example. Why do you think it's a good example? Because there's a lot of people we never meet. 72, interesting. This is why I like fitness trackers.
Why?
Beats per minute. Because it's telling me my heart rate.
Is that high for you?
It's 20 above my resting.
Your resting's 52.
51. What's yours? Do you know?
I think it's pretty low. But this is a whole other thing. Like you recognize that 51 is pretty low, right?
51's very good.
This is a whole other thing.
What do you mean?
You know, like when when they were monitoring my heart rate.
Yeah.
So my like resting heart rate was pretty low.
Mm.
That was a problem.
I see.
And it was like, oh, I think I just have a low heart rate. But they didn't buy that.
Possibly because the thing that gives you a low heart rate is shit tons of exercise. It's cardio.
Mm.
So if at the time you weren't doing a bunch of it, I can see why that would lead someone to.
Would it already be there?
I don't know. Let's talk for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, let's go into the book.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's much more relaxing.
I'm sorry you're feeling that.
Thanks. There's no explanation, so
Yeah.
there's like nothing really to say about it, except that I can't believe that Corey is cutting his classes to 2 a week.
Oh no! Is it just too much for him?
I'm sure.
That sucks. That's your dance teacher. Yeah. I think that's mine.
What is it?
68. Yours is very,
Very low.
I don't know. Good for you. It's low. 51. Yeah.
Depends on what kind of shape I'm in, but yeah.
Do you want to talk about Corey, or do you want to talk about the book?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think this book is a really good example of that because he's not trying to fit anyone into a square peg. People don't feel like objects.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I said something about it.
Even I'm thinking about Helena. The fact that we don't understand her, even that to me feels fair somehow.
There's something that still bothers me about her.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels very different now in light of everything.
Yeah.
I still think she was like featured enough that like we should have gotten a sense of her if there was something to get a sense of. Yeah, it's more my weird feelings about it are more specific to the fact that we saw her a lot, and I just think about other people that we saw that much, and can I like describe them? And for the most part, I think I can. Maybe not Vasily that much, but it might be because we haven't seen him in a while as well.
And you don't think you can describe her? I mean, there's
She's
a before
socially
picture and an after picture.
She's socially impeccable. People like to be around her.
Mm-hmm.
She's beautiful. She's not really knowing anything about it. Everything else would be me like extrapolating pretty intensely.
Her inner life is very much unknown.
Yeah. You don't get her perspective on almost on anything, actually. She clearly everything else is me extrapolating. Mm-hmm. So the fact that she was uncomfortable or comfortable with Anatoly and that whole, like the fact that she was like an enabler means that she has a slight disregard for rules and decorum in a certain way and is like dishonorable. Because that's not an honorable thing to have done to Natasha.
No, I don't think she's about honor. I think she's about like cleverness and, she's a Slytherin. I just think that's not unintentional. There's something unknowable about her.
Okay.
And I guess there are people like that that can't be scrutinized.
Gemini.
Such a Gemini. She is, though.
anytime I meet them, I'm like, I'm not interested in whoever this person is. And you're not going to show me the other one, so what's the point?
Gemini. Yeah. For some reason, I don't know. I'm more and more, I'm like, I'm okay with whatever she is.
My trust is increasing, so I'm more
Mhm.
willing to accept that.
And she's also passed, so that helps.
Right. She's not still digging her own fucking grave in this book. I'm more open to there being an explanation, and I'm more open to it being intentional and it being a character thing. All of those things, I'm open.
Mhm.
It does still feel like it's still notable to me, I
Mhm.
suppose. Notable, but I don't know what I would note about it.
Yeah.
Other than the obvious thing about not being in her head ever.
Right.
Which we get to be with almost everyone. Maybe not the French girl. Do we ever?
Remember that one little passage where
Where she was revealed to be the worst person in the world?
where suddenly, I think that's the only time we ever get to know anything about her really, except how she has a fantasy that she'll like sleep with some rich
Rich.
royal.
Who like will dominate her
Yeah,
and take her
and take her away,
like against her will, not against her will?
pretty much.
Or not against her will, against her will. Manifesting
Is it
generator,
that
generator,
like is
manifesting.
it that she was be like a ruined woman and so then like he would have to take her?
I don't think it was that deep.
It wasn't that deep?
I think it
Okay.
was more like like that.
Yeah. That's all we know about Mademoiselle Bourienne. That's all we need to know. Is it?
I feel like she's a bit of a dick.
I think she is.
She's opportunistic.
I guess so.
She's Helena. I don't know.
She's just there when she shouldn't be.
She's more than just there though, because she becomes, remember, the fucking confidant of the dad. Like that shit's weird.
It's so weird.
Yeah, that's weird. Like she clearly accepts the attention.
Oh yeah.
Which makes her gross.
Does
See,
it?
I'm judging her
You
like
are.
she's an object. And who is that
I don't
on?
think
Is
she's
that on
gross.
Tolstoy or me?
But like, okay, so wait. I strangely have like a bit of sympathy for her because who is she? She's just a mademoiselle, and she's always in the presence of princesses and countesses, and like she doesn't stand a chance. So she's actually like in a very privileged position.
She has room and board.
Exactly. So she's in a very privileged position, but like it is kind of constant that she's on a lower rung.
Yes.
And so it makes sense that she would have a fantasy of like of somehow getting to like rise above
Yes.
that platform.
Fantasy, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that everyone would make the choice to exploit opportunities towards a fantasy
Mm-hmm.
at any cost. And that's where my judgment comes in. Like Mary, if she was in her position, would never do what she does, even if she had the same fantasy.
Yeah.
So that's where my judgment comes in. I'm like,
Interesting.
a bit of a dick. Mary's just an example, but like, I don't think a lot of other people would. Maybe not a lot, but like, you can imagine other people not.
Is she a dick or is she without religion?
She's got no morals. She's a loose woman. I don't have a better word than opportunistic.
Okay.
Like, her advantage is more important than somebody else's disadvantage.
Okay.
Like she's going to choose herself every time.
Oh, I just see her as getting like swept up in things.
That's nice.
That's how I see it. She just doesn't think that much, think things through.
Yeah, but I don't have that much patience for those people either.
Right. That's not better for you. But so I honestly just see her like getting whatever when she meet up with Anatoly or whatever the hell they did. I see her just being like, oh, whatever.
But then she like wept and wept and wept.
Yeah.
Because her emotional reality is more important than Mary's. She made it about her.
Yeah.
As opposed to about Mary.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
And Mary was actually really upset.
But Mary's also like the perfect person for that to happen with. Like Mary allowed that to happen too.
Yes.
And that again goes with my idea that like she just gets carried away by things.
Yeah, I'm not.
So like that happened, and then she feels a ton of shame, and she just like can't help it. Like she doesn't have like the self-awareness.
I'm not arguing against you.
Yeah, but you're like that still doesn't.
I still don't like it.
Yeah.
We're in chapter 10.
Mm-hmm.
Janessa fell in love with Kutuzov. And so hopefully he'll be returning soon.
He might not be. Will he be? He probably will be.
We're really into him.
We're really, yeah,
over here.
Whew.
We are very into Kutuzov.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think how you feel about him is intentional.
Yeah.
So, like, you and Tolstoy are, like, in lockstep right now.
Oh. I don't know if I'm in love with him. I was just thinking about him today, you know.
Yeah. I just think about him a lot.
Yeah, you know.
That's what I mean when I say love.
Oh, okay.
Have you not? But, I guess you haven't.
Huh?
Like, I used to call everyone my boyfriend.
Oh.
I'd be like my kitchen mouse boyfriend. And that confused people sometimes. I think Aaron might have been one of the people that was confused. And I was like, no, I'm just throwing it around.
Right.
So I didn't mean you were like in love with Kutuzov.
I didn't think that you thought that I thought that I was in love with him.
Okay. What did you think?
But I more mean like literal love, but I also mean I'm not like, I love him. I'm not like that. I was just thinking.
No, you're like, he's a child of God.
No, I just think more and more I'm like, this is actually like a deeply religious book. And I think he's presented as a man of God. Actually.
Religious.
Religious is the wrong word. Spiritual is a better word. Yeah. Like everything that Tolstoy is talking about. But it's interesting to me because Kutuzov never talks about God.
Never talks about it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if Kutuzov would ever thinks about these things, but he acts in that way, naturally.
So he's naturally of God, but you don't love him.
You don't love him. Okay.
He can't help himself. He's just basically a demigod himself. But like, I don't know. I'm joking.
Okay.
Chapter 10.
Yes.
The French army melted away at the uniform rate of a mathematical progression, and that crossing of the Berezina, about which so much has been written, was only one intermediate stage in its destruction, and not at all the decisive episode of the campaign. If so much has been and still is written about the Berezina on the French side, this is only because at the broken bridge across that river, the calamities their army had been previously enduring was suddenly concentrated at one moment into a tragic spectacle that remained in every memory. And on the Russian side, merely because in Petersburg, far from the seat of war, a plan, again, one of Fuel's.
Yes!
What up, Fuel? Had been devised to catch Napoleon in a strategic trap at the Berezina River. Everyone assured himself that all would happen according to plan and therefore insisted that it was just the crossing of the Berezina that destroyed the French army. In reality, The results of the crossing were much less disastrous to the French in guns and men lost than Krasnov had been, as the figures show.
The sole importance of the crossing of the Berezina lies in the fact that it plainly and indubitably proved the fallacy of all the plans for cutting off the enemy's retreat, and the soundness of the only possible line of action, the one Kutuzov and the general mass of the army demanded, namely simply to follow the enemy up. The French crowd fled at a continually increasing speed, and all its energy was directed to reaching its goal. It fled like a wounded animal, and it was impossible to block its path. This was shown not so much by the arrangements it made for crossing, as by what took place at the bridges. When the bridges broke down, unarmed soldiers, people from Moscow, and women with children who were with the French transport, all, carried on by the Inarche, pressed.
Why did we just go to French?
I have no idea. Inertia. Pressed forward into boats and into the ice-covered water and did not surrender.
That impulse was reasonable. The condition of fugitives and of pursuers was equally bad. Is it? As long as they remained with their own people, each might hope for help from his fellows and the definite place he held among them. But those who surrendered, while remaining in the same pitiful plight, would be on a lower level to claim a share in the necessities of life. The French did not need to be informed of the fact that half the prisoners, with whom the Russians did not know what to do, perished of cold and hunger despite their captors' desire to save them. They felt that it could not be otherwise. The most compassionate Russian commanders, those favorable to the French, and even the Frenchmen in the Russian service, could do nothing for the prisoners. The French perished from the conditions to which the Russian army was itself exposed. It was impossible to take bread and clothes from our hungry and indispensable soldiers to give to the French, who, though not harmful or hated or guilty, was simply unnecessary. Some Russians even did that, but they were exceptions.
Certain destruction lay behind the French, but in front there was hope. Their ships had been burned, there was no salvation save in collective flight, and on that the whole strength of the French was concentrated.
The farther they fled, the more wretched became the plight of the remnant, especially after the Berezina, on which, in consequence of the Petersburg plan, still hopes had been placed by the Russians, and the keener grew the passions of the Russian commanders, who blamed one another, and Kutuzov most of all. Anticipation that the failure of the Petersburg-Berezina plan would be attributed to Kutuzov led to dissatisfaction, contempt, and ridicule, more and more strongly expressed. The ridicule and contempt were, of course, expressed in a respectful form, making it impossible for him to ask wherein he was to blame. They did not talk seriously to him. When reporting to him or asking for his sanction, they appeared to be fulfilling a regrettable formality, but they winked behind his back and tried to mislead him at every turn. Because they could not understand him, all these people assumed that it was useless to talk to the old man, that he would never grasp the profundity of their plans, that he would answer with his phrases, which they thought were mere phrases, about a golden bridge, about the impossibility of crossing the frontier with a crowd of tattered Demalians. What? And so forth. I just came across a crazy word.
Yeah.
Tatterdemalions.
What?
Yeah, it doesn't even have a thing, unless it's French, which it's still a crazy word.
Wait, where is that?
It is in the paragraph that begins with "because they could not understand him." Wow. You see Golden Bridge?
Yeah, Golden Bridge above you.
2 lines under that.
Tatterdemalions. A crowd of tatterdemalions. Wow.
And I don't have a definition either. Do you?
No. It's so less exciting than what it sounds like it's gonna be. A person with tattered clothing.
Where did you find that?
Wiktionary.
Yeah.
Person. First attested circa 1608. An early spelling was tatter de malion, or rhymes with Italian. Tatter
Malian?
Malian. Rhymes with Italian. The first part of the word is tatter. The origin of the second part is unclear. Ebenezer Cobham, brewer, him, suggested it might be from de Maillot shirt.
Okay.
Tattered shirt.
They had heard all that before, and all he said, that it was necessary to wait provisions or that the men had no boots, was so simple, while what they proposed was so complicated and clever that it was evident that he was only stupid and that they, though not in power, were commanders of juniors.
After the junction with the army of the brilliant admiral and Petersburg hero Wittgenstein, this mood and the gossip of the staff reached their maximum. Kutuzov saw this and merely sighed and shrugged his shoulders. Only once, after the affair of the Berezina, did he get angry and write to Bennigsen, who reported separately to the emperor the following letter.
On account of your spells of ill health, will your excellency please be so good as to set off for Kaluga on receipt of this, and there await further commands and appointments from his imperial majesty.
But after Bennigsen's departure, the Grand Duke Tsarevich Konstantin Pavlovich joined the army. He had taken part in the beginning of the campaign, but had subsequently been removed from the army by Kutuzov. Now, having come to the army, he informed Kutuzov of the emperor's displeasure at the poor success of our forces and the slowness of their advance. The emperor intended to join the army personally in a few days' time.
The old man, experienced in court as well as in military affairs, this same Kutuzov, who in August had been chosen commander-in-chief against the sovereign's wishes, and who had removed the Grand Duke and heir apparent from the army, well, that's the heir apparent, from the army, who, on his own authority and contrary to the emperor's will, had decided on the abandonment of Moscow, now realized at once that his day was over, that his part was played, and that the power he was supposed to hold was no longer his. And he understood this not merely from the attitude of the court. He saw, on the one hand, that the military business in which he had played his part was ended, and felt that his mission was accomplished. And at the same time, he began to be conscious of the physical weariness of his aged body and of the necessity of physical rest.
On the 29th of November, Kutuzov entered Vilna, his dear Vilna, as he called it. Twice during his career, Kutuzov had been governor of Vilna. In that wealthy town...
Whoa! Nice to be governor here.
Yes. In that wealthy town, which had not been injured, he found old friends and associations, besides the comforts of life of which he had so long been deprived. And he suddenly turned from the cares of army and state and, as far as the passions that seethed around him allowed, immersed himself in the quiet life to which he had formerly been accustomed, as if all that was taking place and all that had still to be done in the realm of history did not concern him at all.
Chichagov, one of the most zealous cutters off and breakers up, who had first wanted to effect a diversion in Greece and then in Warsaw, but never wished to go where he was sent. Chichagov. No,
Chichagov.
no, you don't have the...
No, Chichagov. Chichagov. Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
noted for the boldness with which he spoke to the emperor, and who considered Kutuzov to be under an obligation to him because when he was sent to make peace with Turkey in 1811, independently of Kutuzov, and found that peace had already been concluded, he admitted to the emperor that the merit of securing that peace was really Kutuzov's. This, Chichagov, was the first to meet Kutuzov at the castle, where the latter was to stay. In undress naval uniform with a dirk, and holding his cap under his arm, he handed Kutuzov a garrison report and the keys of the town. The contemptuously respectful attitude of the younger men to the old man in his dotage was expressed in the highest degree by the behavior of Chichagov, who knew of the accusations that were being directed against Kutuzov.
When speaking to Chichagov, Kutuzov incidentally mentioned that the vehicles packed with china that had been captured from him at Borisov had been recovered and would be restored to him.
You mean to imply that I have nothing to eat out of? On the contrary, I can supply you with everything, even if you want to give dinner parties, warmly replied Chichagov, who tried by every word he spoke to prove his own rectitude, and therefore imagined Kutuzov to be animated by the same desire.
Kutuzov, shrugging his shoulders, replied with a subtle, penetrating smile, I meant merely to say what I said.
Well, that's not very nonsensy.
Mm-mm.
Contrary to the emperor's wish, Kutuzov detained the greater part of the army at Vilna. Those about him said that he became extraordinarily slack and physically feeble during his stay in that town. He attended to army affairs reluctantly, left everything to his generals, and while awaiting the emperor's arrival, led a dissipated life.
Having left Petersburg on the 7th of December with his suite, Count Tolstoy, Prince Volkonsky, Arakcheev, and others, the emperor reached Vilna and others with his suite, right? The emperor reached Vilna on the 11th, and in his traveling sleigh drove straight to the castle. In spite of the severe frost, some 100 generals and staff officers in full parade uniform stood in front of the castle, as well as a guard of honor of the Semenov regiment.
A courier who galloped to the castle in advance in a troika with 3 foam-flecked horses shouted, "Coming!" and Konovnitsyn rushed into the vestibule to inform Kutuzov, who was waiting in the hall porter's little lodge.
A minute later, the old man's large, stout figure in full dress uniform, his chest covered with orders and a scarf drawn round his stomach, waddled out into the porch. He put on his hat with its peaks to the sides and, holding his gloves in his hand and walking with an effort sideways down the steps to the level of the street, took in his hand the report he had prepared for the emperor.
There was running to and fro and whispering. Another troika flew furiously up, and then all eyes were turned on the approaching sleigh in which the figures of the emperor and Volkonsky could already be described.
In the habit of 50 years, all this had a physically agitating effect on the old general. He carefully and hastily felt himself all over, readjusted his hat, and, pulling himself together, drew himself up, and at the very moment when the emperor, having alighted from the sleigh, lifted his eyes to him, handed him the report, and began speaking in his smooth, ingratiating voice.
The emperor, with a rapid glance, scanned Kutuzov from head to foot, frowned for an instant, but immediately mastering himself, went up to the old man, extended his arms, and embraced him. And this embrace, too, owing to a long-standing impression related to his innermost feelings, had its usual effect on Kutuzov, and he gave a sob. I'm sorry, what?
I mean, it's the emperor.
Long-standing impression related to his innermost feelings. A single sob.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. I mean, you think that's something between them?
No idea.
Suddenly,
The emperor.
the emperor greeted the officers in the Semenov guard, and
Where
again,
did you see suddenly?
I had flipped the page.
Oh.
I had flipped the page prematurely. The emperor greeted the officers in the Semenov guard, and again, pressing the old man's hand, went with him into the castle.
When alone with the field marshal, the emperor expressed his dissatisfaction at the slowness of the pursuit and at the mistakes made at Krasno and Berezina, and informed him of his intentions for a future campaign abroad. What? Kutuzov made no rejoinder or remark. The same submissive, expressionless look with which he had listened to the emperor's commands on the field of Austerlitz 7 years before settled on his face now.
When Kutuzov came out of the study and with lowered head was crossing the ballroom with his heavy, waddling gait, he was arrested by someone's voice saying,
"Your Serene Highness."
Kutuzov raised his head and looked for a long while into the eyes of Count Tolstoy, who stood before him holding a silver salver on which lay a small object. Kutuzov seemed not to understand what was expected of him.
Suddenly, he seemed to remember. A scarcely perceptible smile flashed across his puffy face, and bowing low and respectfully, he took the object that lay on the salver. It was the Order of St. George of the First Class. And he gave a sob. How would you give a sob?
A sob? That's pretty good. Something like that.
Depends on the genre. Chapter 11.
The next day, the field marshal gave a dinner and ball which the emperor honored by his presence. Kutuzov had received the Order of St. George of the First Class.
Like one sentence ago.
We remember.
It's just happened.
And the emperor showed him the highest honors, but everyone knew of the imperial dissatisfaction with him. The proprieties were observed, and the emperor was the first to set that example. But everybody understood that the old man was blameworthy and good for nothing.
Jesus.
When Kutuzov, conforming to a custom of Catherine's day, ordered the standards that had been captured to be lowered at the emperor's feet on his entering the ballroom, the emperor made a wry face and muttered something in which some people caught the words, "The old comedian."
The emperor's displeasure with Kutuzov was especially increased at Vilna by the fact that Kutuzov evidently could not or would not understand the importance of the coming campaign.
When on the following morning the emperor said to the officers assembled about him, "You have not only saved Russia, you have saved Europe," they all understood that the war was not ended.
Kutuzov alone would not see this, and openly expressed his opinion that no fresh war could improve the position or add to the glory of Russia, but could only spoil and lower the glorious position that Russia had gained. He tried to prove to the emperor the impossibility of levying fresh troops, spoke of the hardships already endured by the people, of the possibility of failure, and so forth. Well, there he's saying stuff,
Yeah.
trying to prove to the emperor. Wouldn't
He
it be
says
more
stuff.
in line with his thing to just be like, go to war if you want?
I think he says stuff, it's just he doesn't mind like completely contradicting it afterward.
I just mean like the futility of like trying to convince someone of something.
Yeah. I don't know. He might also be, we haven't really seen him with anyone higher up. Is that true? He might be different with the emperor.
I mean, there's almost no one above him yet.
This being the field marshal's frame of mind, he was naturally regarded as merely a hindrance, an obstacle to the impending war.
To avoid unpleasant encounters with the old man, the natural method was to do what had been done with him at Austerlitz and with Barclay at the beginning of the Russian campaign, to transfer the authority to the emperor himself, thus cutting the ground from under the commander-in-chief's feet without upsetting the old man by informing him of the change.
With this object, his staff was gradually reconstructed and its real strength removed and transferred to the emperor. Toll, Konovnitsyn, and Ermolov received fresh appointments. Everyone spoke loudly of the field marshal's great weakness and failing health.
His health had to be bad for his place to be taken away and given to another, and in fact, his health was poor.
So naturally, simply, and gradually, just see it come from Turkey to the treasury in Petersburg to recruit the militia, and then to the army when he was needed there, now when his part was played out, Kutuzov's place was taken by a new and necessary performer.
The War of 1812, besides its national significance dear to every Russian heart, was now to assume another, a European significance.
The movement of peoples from west to east was to be succeeded by a movement of people from east to west. And for this fresh war, another leader was necessary, having qualities and views differing from Kutuzov's and animated by different motives.
Alexander I was as necessary for the movement of the peoples from east to west and for the refixing of national frontiers as Kutuzov had been for the salvation and glory of Russia.
Kutuzov did not understand what Europe, the balance of power, or Napoleon meant. He could not understand it. For the representative of the Russian people, after the enemy had been destroyed and... Oh? Okay.
Yes, perfectly.
For the representative of the Russian people, after the enemy had been destroyed and Russia had been liberated and raised to the summit of her glory, there was nothing left to do as a Russian. Nothing remained for the representative of the national war.
That's why I've said that. I mean,
Nothing remained
lost.
for the representative of the national war but to die. And Kutuzov died.
I think Kutuzov is the one who made me think about would you want to be like, how would you feel about being great but like never being achieved?
Oh, yeah. You know what's so funny? Old man. Dead.
Okay.
You know, I was like, there has to be an old man who dies.
I didn't realize it was such a thing.
It's
Well, because now the books can end.
like Gandalf.
He doesn't die.
No, he does.
He doesn't die.
He gets in a boat and they send him to a farm.
No. No, he goes to a better.
Yeah.
He goes to a better!
I mean, yeah. He does, but symbolically it's the same.
Whatever. Okay.
Okay. But yeah. He died. It's so interesting that they don't tell us how.
Is it?
I don't know.
There's nothing left to do. I thought he was fine with leading a dissipated life, but I guess
The
not.
way, like,
He seemed
that's
fine
a
with it.
pretty interesting way of just. I guess that's what Tolstoy's been doing.
Yeah,
all
well,
along.
I can't believe you're surprised.
So he died. His part was done. Next.
And you don't even have to say next because we already know who. No. We don't have to do this place.
It doesn't matter.
Of course it doesn't. Nothing.
Because it's not
matters.
about the man.
Cool.
Do you want to keep reading?
Um, are we gonna finish this today?
No. I think there's 20 chapters.
I think I might be done, but I'm feeling
Yeah.
guilty for not reading a lot
It's
the last
okay.
3 days.
Well, this is 5 pages. But if you
Yeah.
want to end it.
We can read 5 pages.
Chapter 12.
Could just talk about the fact that I was like, let's read War and Peace. And we just had a conversation in which you were like, you can stop. And I was like, it's 5 pages. And then you said 5 pages. And I was like, we can read 5 pages. And you were like, yeah. Okay. Like, that would have been a really funny thing to cut to after. After the fucking decision to do this. Like, you can do okay? 5 pages?
5 pages?
And I'm like, I think so. We read like 5,000.
Yeah. We're eating a car, okay?
I didn't look that up. I can't believe it. I need to talk to someone about it.
Oh my god, I was thinking about pico today too. That's what it's called, right? When you eat things that aren't food.
I don't know.
And I was thinking about why someone would do that and whether part of the appeal is that it's not food.
I don't like this topic.
No, because it's disturbing to think about.
I don't know what it is, but I have such a like.
Like I was just thinking, like it's because it can't be broken down by your body
Right.
that makes it appealing and maybe like strangely grounding in a weird way. Like because it's not alive.
I don't know. To me, it's like the most contrary. Like, I think this is what homophobes feel like. That I'm like,
You're just like, no.
I'm like, what are you guys doing? This is not what people do.
I don't know why, but I draw a parallel between that and people who marry bridges.
These people who marry bridges?
Yeah.
How do they get consent?
I don't know. That's a good question.
So they need to be arrested. I
I
guess
mean,
the bridge is old enough.
like they marry bridges, they marry buildings, they marry objects.
What is going on with those people?
I do not know.
What's going on with those people? Like, what is happening there?
I don't know. They're in love with them though. Like for them, it's love.
What if Ishan is like
I think he's gonna be special. Oh, he is.
drugs?
Drugs.
He really likes
Keep an eye on it. He gets too attached to those drugs.
As long as it's not a truck, right? Is it better or worse if it's one truck? They're like, no. Other trucks are nothing like this truck. This is the one I love. Do you think they're like, I need an escort to cross this bridge because I will not look at her.
Yes, fights.
Like, are you allowed to go drive on other bridges? Or is that like violating the sanctity of your marriage? You should not be allowed. I'm sorry. I don't think these people marry bridges because you can't marry an inanimate object. I mean, I think it's funny that like it's taken me this long to say this in this conversation, but what is a one-way marriage? Like, what are they?
I don't think it's legally binding, but there's definitely ceremonies.
Okay, well, I care that it's not legally binding. That makes me feel a bit better. But then, like, I can have a ceremony right now
Like,
and marry this couch.
so the Tiger King, who had 2 husbands, like, was that legally binding? Or was that just like a weird?
I don't think they were at the same time.
So can you have 2 husbands?
No,
So
the second one is not legal then.
I don't know.
You didn't know that you can't have 2 husbands?
I mean, I thought you couldn't, but I was wondering. I remember the footage of the ceremony, so I'm like, was it actually a wedding or not?
I mean, who knows with that?
Yeah.
With that guy. That was so depressing. That's kind of like marrying a bridge, dude.
Yeah, it is.
If you're like, I don't care about how this person feels towards me, I'll just love it then. I'll just love it then.
Yeah.
Because that's all you can do is love at a bridge. I'm not saying that the husbands were not people, but it didn't seem like he cared what their feelings were.
No, obviously not, because
So-
we're both straight.
Right. So, but like, were they?
But, I mean, that's what they said.
Yeah, but like, I could also imagine it being like not that clear cut.
I mean, like, sexuality is fluid.
Obviously,
But-
yeah.
I think they were, for the most part, straight. I think
I mean, for the most part, is like still not straight.
maybe it was like a weird anomaly.
Is it a weird anomaly to?
No, in that, like, people are just attracted to. He's like a shiny person. He's tall and blonde.
How tall is he? I don't think he's a real blonde, but who cares?
That doesn't matter.
Let's make me a blonde.
Yes, I can see it.
Of course you can.
You can't?
No.
I mean, you'd have to go platinum.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think there would have to be roots also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Blonde hair coming out of my head? Are you insane?
For some
I'd
reason-
look like I broke.
For some reason, I'm just picturing a seal wig on you right now.
Imagine if I had like light bangs and then like black eyebrows.
Yeah.
Would I have to dye my eyes?
You could, if you wanted to. That would be weird, though.
Oh, that would be weird.
That would be the. That would be the. That would be the.
Why is the other one not weird?
Well, it's like, cause how? No, I guess it would be fine.
I'd look like Harvey. Not what's his name? Martin Scorsese.
You look good. Right after this, I'm gonna get one of those stupid apps where you can try on different hairstyles.
Oh. Yes,
Yes.
that should happen. We got nowhere with our, what's it called?
What?
Our apping for,
I know we did. I gave up
you did?
very quickly. I tried to make you, and then I was like,
Why did you give up? Was it like, this is never going to work? Or like,
I just didn't think it was good enough.
but like,
I could still try. I could still do it.
I don't want to make it like your problem.
No, but I think
don't
I need a
have
better picture
skills for-
of you.
What picture have you been using?
I just pulled one from your Instagram.
You're still looking at Instagram?
It's partly why I never comment, because like
You make it so obvious.
exactly.
Oh.
I'd be like in the shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would presumably have to be from straight on, right? Or no, it would have to be the closest to whatever he is in that picture.
Yeah.
Which I can't quite remember. It's a little bit like this. It's like Step Brothers.
Yeah. So I pulled one from your Instagram that's a profile. But like you're
Profile.
smiling,
Okay.
and I think that's a problem.
Okay. What?
Because it's a problem when you smile.
Yeah, I was gonna go there, and then I was like, no, you know what?
Do you want to read?
Yeah, we have to.
We have to.
I have to prove that we can do this.
Okay. Chapter 12. As generally happens, Pierre did not feel the full effects of the physical privation and strain he had suffered as prisoner until after they were over.
Hmm.
After his liberation, he reached Orel, and on the third day there, when preparing to go to Kiev, he fell ill and was laid up for 3 months.
Gosh.
He had what the doctors termed bilious fever. But despite the fact that the doctors treated him, bled him, and gave him medicines to drink, he recovered. That's the least he's had it so far.
Scarcely any impression was left on Pierre's mind by all that happened to him from the time of his rescue till his illness. He remembered only the dull gray. I'm going to be so upset if there's absolutely no mention of what's his name?
Platon?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Just gonna get
Duly
that out.
noted. Yeah.
Get that out there. He remembered only the dull gray weather, now rainy and now snowy, internal physical distress and pains in his feet and side. He remembered a general impression of the misfortunes and sufferings of people, and of being worried by the curiosity of officers and generals who questioned him. He also remembered his difficulty in procuring a conveyance and horses, and above all, he remembered his incapacity to think and feel all that time. He was incapacitated and not able to think and feel? Is that what that says?
He remembered, yeah. I remember not being able to think and feel.
I didn't realize that's what was going on with him. I thought he was with God.
Me too.
On the day of his rescue, he had seen the body of Petya Rostov. That same day, he had learned that Prince Andrew, after surviving the Battle of Borodino for more than a month, had recently died in the Rostov's house at Yaroslavl. And Denisov, who told him this news, also mentioned Helena's death, supposing that Pierre had heard of it long before. All this at the time seemed merely strange to Pierre. He felt he could not grasp its significance. Just then, he was only anxious to get away as quickly as possible from places where people were killing one another to some peaceful refuge where he could recover himself, rest, and think over all the strange new facts he had learned. But on reaching Orel, he immediately fell ill. When he came to himself after his illness, he saw in attendance on him, 2 of his servants, Terenti and Vaska, who had come from Moscow, and also his cousin, the eldest princess, who had been living on his estate at Aletz, and hearing of his rescue and illness, had come to look after him.
It was only gradually during his convalescence that Pierre lost the impressions he had become accustomed to during the last few months, and got used to the idea that no one would oblige him to go anywhere tomorrow, that no one would deprive him of his warm bed, and that he would be sure to get his dinner, tea, and supper. But for a long time in his dreams, he still saw himself in the conditions of captivity. In the same way, little by little, he came to understand the news he had been told after his rescue about the death of Prince Andrew, the death of his wife, and the destruction of the French.
A joyous feeling of freedom, that complete, inalienable freedom natural to man, which he had first experienced at the first hold outside Moscow, filled Pierre's soul during his convalescence. He was surprised to find that this inner freedom, which was independent of external conditions, now had, as it were, an additional setting of external liberty. He was alone in a strange town, without acquaintances. No one demanded anything of him or sent him anywhere. He had all he wanted. The thought of his wife, which had been a continual torment to him, was no longer there, since she was no more.
Okay, wait. Let's just keep reading.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay. Oh,
So that counts as you saying something. Just one.
okay. Oh, how good! How splendid! Said he to himself when a cleanly laid table was moved up to him with savory beef tea. Or when he lay down for the night on a soft, clean bed, or when he remembered that the French had gone and that his wife was no more. Oh, how good! How splendid!
And by old habit, he asked himself the question, well, and what then? What am I going to do? And he immediately gave himself the answer, well, I shall live. Ah, how splendid.
The very question that had formerly tormented him, the thing he had continually sought to find, the aim of life, no longer existed for him now. That search for the aim of life had not merely disappeared temporarily. He felt that it no longer existed for him. It could not present itself again. And this very absence of an aim gave him the complete, joyous sense of freedom which constituted his happiness at this time.
He could not see an aim, for he now had faith. Not faith in any kind of rule or words or ideas, but faith in an ever-living, ever-manifest God. Formerly he had sought him in aims, he said himself. That search for an aim had been simply a search for God. And suddenly, in his captivity, he had learned, not by words or reasoning, but by direct feeling, what his nurse had told him long ago, that God is here and everywhere. In his captivity, he had learned that in Karatia, God was greater, more infinite and unfathomable than in the architect of the universe recognized by the Freemasons. I can't believe that this is the context in which we hear about him again. After what I said, but I hope he's mentioned. He felt like a man who, after straining his eyes to see into the far distance, finds what he saw at his very feet. All his life he had looked over the heads of the men around him, when he should have merely looked in front of him without straining his eyes.
Wait, what do you mean that you can't believe?
Like, I was nervous that Pierre was never going to acknowledge Karatia ever. And I was like going to be hurt by that personally. But he does mention him, and not only does he mention him, he fucking says in his captivity he had learned that in Karatia God was greater, more infinite, and unfathomable than in the architect of the universe recognized by the Freemasons. Like, there's not a higher thing to say about a person. Yeah, I'd say so.
In the past, he had never been able to find that great, unscrutable, infinite something. He'd only felt that it must exist somewhere and had looked for it. In everything near and comprehensible, he had only what was limited, petty, commonplace, and senseless. He equipped himself with a mental telescope and looked into remote space. I love that. Mental telescope. Where petty worldliness, hiding itself in misty distance, had seemed to him great and infinite merely because it was not clearly seen. And such had European life, politics, Freemasonry, philosophy, and philanthropy seemed to him. But even then, at moments of weakness, as he had encountered them, his mind had penetrated to those distances, and he had there seen the same pettiness, worldliness, and senselessness. Now, however, he had learned to see the great, eternal, and infinite in everything, and therefore to sit and enjoy its contemplation. He naturally threw away the telescope through which he had till now gazed over men's heads, and gladly regarded the ever changing, eternally great, unfathomable, and infinite life around him. And the closer he looked, the more tranquil and happy he became. That dreadful question, what for, which had formerly destroyed all his mental edifices, no longer existed for him. To that question, what for, the simple answer was now always ready in his soul, because there is a God, a God without whose will not one hair falls from a man's head.
It might be one of my favorite parts of it. I can't believe how appropriate this book is.
Yeah, that's the book right there. And it makes sense too why it's so long. Like, yeah, it was that long to just say that.
I'm trying to remember what it felt like, what we are doing stuff felt like.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was like, maybe this,
Yeah, stumbling around in the dark.
maybe this. This feels so much to me like everything else. Like it feels like stopping, trying to understand things. It feels like every conversation. It feels like every conversation folded in. I kept being like, oh, this is about. Not this is about, but I was like, oh, this is about Janessa. And I was like, oh, this is about me. I was like, oh, this is about me. I had that feeling like many times.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know if it's the quarantine or reading this book or what it is, but I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. And the questions about like career, what to do with your life, or all of that, it's like it doesn't really matter.
Hmm. So it is like, it's possible for the quarantine to be raising people's consciousnesses. Which I don't know that I took that seriously when it was said to me.
Mm.
Or rather, I think I took it much more theoretically. Like idea,
Yeah,
an idea.
right.
But it's had like such a profound, it's had such a profound, I don't know how it is for everybody else. It's a little like getting locked in the house with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Vipassana.
Yeah, and with that, all the response to it is strangely appropriate.
All the response to.
People are going to react differently to that. In the same way that if you ask people to meditate, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, this doesn't work for me. This is uncomfortable. I don't like this.
Sure.
And they can't do a minute of it.
I don't know what it has meant to see people online and stuff be talking about how badly they want to. I don't know if this is just me being adaptable
Mm-hmm.
or what, but like I less and less know what they're talking about.
Mm.
I mean, I want to go places too, but there's a like, I want this to stop. I need this to stop. There's a resistance
Yeah.
that I'm having a hard time understanding.
Mm.
And maybe it's just because it's been this long, like so it's taken maybe it's taken this long to wear down whatever resistance I was. I don't know. But I keep having the sense that the people who are doing that are setting themselves up somehow.
Setting themselves up for what?
For this to have been a waste of time.
Mm.
Like you're kind of making it a waste of time if you desperately want it to be over. It's a little bit like the definition of wasting time to me.
Yeah.
Kind of. If it sounds like I'm being harsh, that's not the.
No, it doesn't sound like you're being harsh. I guess I just wonder if that's their response, that's their response. And maybe that needs to be had too for those people because that's where they are.
Yeah, I find it difficult to relate was the main point.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm seeing it and being like,
So it's so vastly different.
it's so different.
Mm.
And I don't know what would happen or would have happened if like the loss had come to like the hundreds of thousands of people. Like if the losses had been closer, like I don't know if this would have gone this way.
Yeah.
This whole thing.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I know it wouldn't. But that only makes me feel more blessed, like more lucky. I got free Vipassana. You know? And that's another thing that surprises me about people chomping at the bit to get out. It's one thing if you're having a tough time because
It's also it's changed my relationship to money.
does it?
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
I don't quite know how to put it into words yet, but it's like I'm okay with being poor. It just doesn't mean that much anymore. I'm like, I can see that everyone's just kind of like, no one has money sorted.
Mhm.
I guess that's what it is. And they make money the excuse for a lot of things. Like, I was thinking about my parents, and growing up, my parents argued mostly about money, which is like pretty common for a lot of families. And I was just very conscious of like, we don't have money, we don't have money, we don't have money. And that's partly why I'm so sensitive when food goes to waste. Because to me, it was like, we can't spare anything. We're going to be out on the streets. But then, so my parents are like fighting about money. They're stressed about money. But there was always money. Like, the fact is, they let food go to waste, which means like it wasn't that bad. Like, it couldn't have been otherwise. And I just realized like, oh, they were like arguing about something, but in the end, like, it got sorted. Like, we were okay, and they were just having a conversation about something over and over and over again that was unnecessary, to be honest, and probably about something larger. And it was just like, oh yeah, like people have this preoccupation with money, but it's really about something else. And like, I don't need to get hooked by it. Like, definitely, it's like make money and support yourself, but it's not a person's worth, and it's not a person's safety.
And you feel like you just got that on a deep level
Yeah, on like a different level. I just feel less.
attached to
I
it.
feel less of a fuck up. That's the big difference. I'm like, yeah, I'm not perfect with money. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's gonna be okay.
I think it's a huge deal. I think that's a huge deal. And it's probably very freeing. Or can be and will be freeing. If it isn't already.
Yeah, I think it will be. Feels like slightly irresponsible right now. Like, that's what I think what stopped me in the past is like, no, you need to, like, like you need to know how bad you are or whatever, or how stupid you are, or whatever it is. Yeah, you need to know that you're terrible with money, and that you need to scramble to fix it. And it's like, no, I can just kind of relax and do what I can do. Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
I don't think so.
Good night, everyone.